And now, Bob Grant.
WABC, New York.
How do you do, ladies and gentlemen? It's a thrill and a pleasure to find out that Bob Grant is not here, because for a change of pace, we're going to have an interesting show. Of course, I hope you don't take that seriously, because I happen to be a very big fan of Bob Grant, and I know he's crazy about me too, even though I don't know him that well personally. I've heard very good things about him from the people who like him, but there are, thank God, plenty of people who are not that crazy about him, so we hear from everybody. But that's why his show is so controversial, because you can't listen to him without feeling intense feelings one way or another, because he's always controversial, he's always determined, he's always opinionated, and he's always fascinating to people, because it instigates people on all sides to express themselves, and that's what we want to do here today. We want to have a provocative show of people talking about exactly what they think, and that's the reason that we have this show, because we want to make sure that there's free speech in this country. So many people on television and radio are always trying to say the things they think will please everybody, and you hear very few real personal opinions expressed very freely, because everybody's worried about being politically correct. But I think the great thing about America is your right to be politically incorrect, to be able to say whatever you feel about whatever you think, regardless of what other people think, and we should tolerate and accept the idea that there's divergent views all over America, and everybody has a right to say whatever they please, and whether we like it or not, we should thank God that we live in a country where we could enjoy that opportunity. And that's why I'm here today, to say whatever I think about whatever I please, and I hope you'll do the same if you disagree with me. And I respect you and your right to say it, and I would never be in any way obnoxious, abusive, or in any way contemptuous of anybody else's opinion, because that's what we want to hear on this show. Ladies and gentlemen, I happen to have with me one of the most prominent lawyers in the world today. I'm sure all of you heard of Raoul Felder, probably the most prominent divorce attorney in this country. I don't know if he is the best, but I know he makes the most money, and I know if he's not the best, he's close enough to be able to charge that much, so people must think he's the best. Anyway, Raoul Felder, how do you do, sir?
How do you do? It's a pleasure to be here.
And
do I have to give you any more money? No.
But I appreciate the fact that you're here, because I know how much you're involved in the social and political issues besides just the divorce issue. That's where you make a living. But even when you're not getting paid, I know how much you're concerned about whatever is happening in this country, because you have great humanitarian and social concerns, and that's why I know you're always giving to political parties and political people, because you want to affect the life of America to the good as you see it. Now,
also, the air conditioning is good here.
But what's interesting is that I think when people listen to a show like this, they want to express themselves, and even if they're not, they want to hear expressed in the most personal terms the feelings we have about the things that are most relevant, that are most pertinent, that are happening exactly now.
What do you think, Jackie, are the hot topics today that people want to hear about?
It looks to me like the hottest topic today is not exactly something that will arouse the most intellectual people in America, but even the most intellectual people probably don't like to admit it, but they're involved in gossip as much as the people who are not such intellectuals. They pretend more that they're interested more in the New York Times, but somehow they always want to sneak a look at the New York Enquirer, the National Enquirer, or they want to take a look at the Star, and they'll claim it's all dirt and filth and garbage, and they somehow sneak it under their arm, under the Times, between the furniture. You'll always find in almost every intellectual's house a copy of one of those papers, because that's why they're all fascinated with the situations that they pretend they're not interested in, like the Michael Jackson situation.
Absolutely. I bet it's a big story all over the world.
In every law office today that I met all the lawyers, and I was in the financial section today, and I met all these tycoons, and somehow between all the stock market fluctuations and all the questions of constitutional issues, somehow in every conversation everybody said, what do you think of Michael Jackson?
Absolutely right on. And all over, not only in America, I think all over the world they're talking about it.
Somehow, when the Woody Allen case was the hottest topic, everybody forgot about the pictures and the genius of Woody Allen. They were only wondering about the perversions of Woody Allen. Is it true? Is he that perverted? How disgusting is it? Who do you blame? Why do you blame? Should he have a right to live? And that was more important to them than all the wars going on all over in the world.
Same thing with Jackson, I think. No.
Now, the Jackson case has been developing more and more evidence, and there's going to be a lot. I'm sure we're going to hear today on this show from a lot of people with their questions of should we be blaming him, should we be predetermining and presuming anything when all the evidence is not in yet, and what right do we have to discuss it, or should we? And should we just stay to the facts and mind our own business? And don't you think a kid like that who's proven to be such a great humanitarian for other children should be given the every benefit of every doubt before any verdict is actually any conclusive definition of what actually happened there? But the point is that that's only one of the hot issues. I think the other biggest, hottest issue today is another thing that's not so exactly the most intellectual issue. The question of that Yenta Heidi, what's her name in Los Angeles?
Heidi Feiss, is it?
And how many names of how many Columbia stars are, and how many executives are in the book? Does she have a book? Where is the book? And what will happen when they get the book?
And how about Burt Reynolds? That's another thing. That's yesterday's story.
More people are taking sides at the Burt Reynolds marriage,
like a civil war,
the divorce problem, than they are with their own sister and brother-in-laws. When there's a divorce in their own family, I don't see people getting half as excited as they are about what right did Burt Reynolds have to divorce her, and is she right or wrong, or is he? And what actually happened there, everybody suddenly becomes a private detective to try to uncover the latest evidence, and people are calling each other up 4 o'clock in the morning to tell you what else they heard. And people are not sleeping now in the middle of the night. Used to be people didn't sleep because it was an earthquake or a flood. Now they're not sleeping because of Burt Reynolds looking for the new evidence. What is the other big issue?
Well, even for the younger people, they got this Axl Rose. They all became legal scholars. Does he have to get back the ring? Doesn't he have to get back the ring?
But that's an issue that I don't think most people are yet familiar with, because that just happened today, isn't it?
Yeah, hot story yesterday, today.
The story with that is that Axl Rose, who is Axl Rose?
Apparently, Axl Rose, this is not my generation, is the lead singer in Guns N' Roses, and he gave this lady a $100,000 engagement ring, and then he had a fight with her, and he called it off, and he said, I want the ring back. And so now everybody's a Philadelphia lawyer. Does he have to get it? Is he entitled to it? Is he not entitled to it?
I think this is a very, very relevant issue. This one, I think, has more claim on the better minds of America. I think
it's a little higher class.
I think it's a higher class question, because this does go to the real issues of who's right or wrong in a legal matter.
This is more like for Justice Cardozo, this stuff.
Because this is a very genuinely good question in terms of a legitimate constitutional issue. Whose rights are being trespassed here and who's being violated here?
Yeah.
And this is an issue that has never been adequately adjudicated.
In the law, the law goes both ways, and I suppose your listeners are going to call up and tell you their 2 cents here.
Because the reason they should tell me their 2 cents is because I think in almost every family they've had a case of this kind, and people are in doubt about who's right, and it is a good subject for conversation and discussion, because it is a legitimate question that has never been adequately resolved. Because when a guy gives a girl a ring thinking he's going to marry her, and she presumes that's the purpose of the ring, and that's the presumption in giving her the ring, it's based on the premise that this will lead to a marriage. And this is because of a marriage and for the date of the marriage. And if this breaks down and there's no marriage, why is she entitled to the ring?
Absolutely.
Now, in most cases, the men forget about it, the women keep the ring, because they claim they have a right to it.
They earned it.
But the truth is that in most cases,
the classical law is the other way. It's a gift in contemplation of an event. The event never took place, so therefore you're entitled to it back. Recent cases the other way. But this is a much higher class area than the other stuff.
But besides these issues, there's also a great issue right now that everybody's involved with, and everybody's concerned about. This is not strictly gossip. This is a matter of the safety of our lives here in this country, and that is the threat of terrorism.
Oh, yes, especially, is it going to increase with the sheikh getting arrested here?
This whole sheikh issue has aroused huge headlines, and everybody is uncertain about exactly what we should do to handle this. Because on the one hand, everybody feels that he's guilty, because if the evidence proves that he should be in jail. On the other hand, people are really afraid of putting him in jail, because they don't know what kind of terrorism might take place all over the world, or especially in this country, if we decide that that's the way we should solve the problem, by putting this man in jail. So a lot of people are wondering, maybe it's a lot smarter to just send him to another country, since other people are willing to take him, and just get rid of him. But on the other hand, they say, but if you get rid of a person who committed crimes and you could prove it, why should he get away with it just because he came from a foreign country? And why should we be intimidated by any fears of terrorism? Because for that matter, you could be afraid of any criminal and put any criminal loose because if you put him in jail, his family will get mad and they'll go after you. So these are the questions that we're going to be discussing for the next few hours. I know that the listeners of this show are intensely involved in whatever is happening, and that's why they listen to the show in the first place. So I'm sure we're going to get a lot of calls about all these issues, and we're going to have a lot to discuss here. These are very hot topics, and it's on everybody's mind. I think that the thing that, of all these topics, that is bothering more people than anything else is I'm ashamed to admit it, but I think it's the issue of Michael Jackson.
Well, it's human nature.
I've watched 32 TV shows in the last 2 days, and even the shows that have nothing to do with politics or news are discussing Michael Jackson. All of a sudden, there's breaks in the middle of a baseball game. Michael Jackson this.
Jackie,
there's a fashion show. They stopped the fashion show. Michael Jackson, something else.
I would say, Jackie,
two rabbis are walking in the street. What do you think of Michael Jackson? They're coming out of the congregation.
We don't know if he's guilty or not, but the truth is he's been assassinated before the event. I mean, what happened to him should happen to a dog. Even the police reports, I saw the policeman's notes were published in the paper. It's kind of sad, and I think that no matter what, you make an accusation like this, and whether he's innocent or guilty is going to stay with him forever.
Well, but let's be honest about it. That's the fate not only of celebrities, but even non-celebrities, even anonymous people. The system of justice in this country is absolutely a perversion, because there's no real justice when you could indict a person publicly, and the man is considered guilty before anything is adjudicated. The suspicion of guilt is immediately aroused because of an indictment.
And
you could call a person a name on the basis of evidence that's so flimsy that it could be meaningless, and at the end of it, he could be completely exonerated. But meanwhile, the headline is all about the accusation.
Well, the newspapers do that. When he's acquitted, it's page 74, and when he's indicted, it's right up front. This is what I say. In Europe, you've been in England a lot, you've appeared there. They they're not allowed to report on this stuff when the trial's going on. It's sad, but it's worse for a celebrity, because if a lawyer's indicted for doing this, if he's acquitted, he'll still practice law. The celebrity, nobody's going to hire him after that. Every time he's with a kid, they're going to be saying something.
Excuse me, I hate to interrupt you, but I'm told that I have to break now. We must make a break here because we have to announce that this portion of the show is being brought to you by good old guys. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Jackie Mason substituting for Bob Grant. And you don't know what a thrill it is to everybody all over the world to find out that Bob Grant is on vacation. Not that they don't want to listen to him, they're thrilled to listen to him, but they're also thrilled to find out that he's not in the neighborhood. So they could say whatever they want without being interrupted, because Jackie Mason is here. And I'm here to protect your right to call anybody names you want, including me, because I will never disturb anybody from from hearing what they have to say, and let you express yourself on your own terms. Try to find out, first of all, before you call here, what you're talking about, and try to see if you could make sense, because the only disturbance I have is that people should call and not know exactly what they have to say and start fumphing and rummaging around their mind, trying to remember what's on their mind. Think of what you have to say first, then give me a call. If it doesn't make sense, I won't call your names, because we don't expect too many people to make it sense on any show. For every intelligent person we know, there's people who just have to talk, even though they don't know what they're talking about. So we expect that, and we won't be insulted. Who's on first? Al.
Hello.
Are you Al?
Yes, I am. How are you, Mr. Mason?
Okay, my friend.
I wanted to ask you your opinion on the mayoral race this year. I know that the last time around you were a backer of Giuliani, but I had read in the paper that you had a falling out with him, and I just wanted to know if you're endorsing anyone this time around, and how you feel about it.
I'm not getting involved in the mayoral race at all this time for publication, and I'm completely staying out of this race as a personality, as a public figure. I'm leaving my opinion to myself and who I will vote for to myself, and I'd rather stay out of it this time, because all I've had out of my opinions in the last campaign was traumatizing experiences where I saw basically I'm not fit for politics, because
maybe you're too good for politics.
For persons. For politics, I think if you want to really be a politician and get involved in political issues, you have to be ready to disguise your real thoughts and your real words, and anything you say could be taken out of context by the press because they're all looking for a major headline, and they all want to make a big controversial issue out of nothing. And if they can't abuse somebody, they have nothing to write about, and there's no purpose in selling any papers. So they have to take a meaningless joke that I told once and make it into sounding like I'm some kind of a violent lunatic, maniac, bigot. It was the furthest thing from my character. I fight for civil rights all my life. For the last 25 years, I've been fighting for women's rights and black rights and Jewish rights and Puerto Rican rights and every human being's rights. I don't care about a person's color of his skin any more than I care about the color of his shirt or his jacket or where he comes from. Doesn't make any difference to me than where he bought his shirts. So, but I saw that blunt talk and honest talk could be converted into all kinds of major conflicts and problems that you never knew or expected, because you're working on the one hand to say what you think, and the papers on the other hand need a headline to extrapolate something to make a vicious issue out of to sell papers. Because if Michael Jackson didn't do anything wrong that day, or Woody Allen, they have nothing to write about. And the two candidates running, Dinkins and Giuliani, unfortunately, are not such colorful personalities, so they don't make too many headlines. Dinkins looks like he's falling asleep when he's talking, and Giuliani looks so flat and cold that you don't know if he said something or not. So between the two of them, you don't know that anybody showed up. So you have to keep looking for somebody else to start a fight about. So if they could call me a Nazi, a bigot, a venomous bastard, or something like it, that serves a great purpose to them. So I'd rather not be involved in this campaign, and I'll keep my thoughts to myself. Hello?
Oh, am I still on?
Did you pass away while I was talking?
No.
Because I know that was a long speech about a simple question.
No, that was it. Thank you very much.
God bless you. See, this is a great show. Where a guy who asks questions is not given a chance to talk. That's the best way to handle the show. This way you can't get into too many fights. I'll let them ask a question, I'll talk for an hour, then they'll forget what it was about, and they'll leave. I don't think that's the way to handle it. I should give the listener an opportunity to talk up. Victor? Hello, Victor.
Yeah, Jack, I wanted to, first of all, I'm an admirer of yours, so I just want to say that. I would like your opinion on why you think prominent Jewish people are liberals.
Because it's very simple. The simple fact is that Jews in general have a suffering minority. They came here as a persecuted minority, and they've always suffered in every country in the world, maimed, murdered, slaughtered, terrorized, and in every way were underdogs every time, and they always had to hide from the majority of the population in every country in the world. They were always alienated, ostracized, condemned in every way. So they know what it is to suffer. And a person who has suffered understands somebody else's pain. It's not that hard to realize and understand and appreciate what somebody else goes through when they're being persecuted for reasons beyond any sensible, any decency. When people are persecuted needlessly and pointlessly just because their race or their color, a Jew knows what it's like. So what's the difference if you're being abused because of your race or because of your religion? So a Jew always was the first one to fight for civil rights and to attack anybody who was abusing any minority in this country. That's why the Jews were always the first civil rights crusaders in America. There's almost no legislator that was Jewish in the Congress, in any state legislature, any mayoralty office, any office, who didn't fight for civil rights, who wasn't in the forefront of that crusade. They were the first ones to fight for the NAACP, to fund everything that had anything to do with civil rights for blacks, for women, for the underdog of any country anywhere in the world. Am I right, Raoul?
Yeah, Jackie, and that's why I said, we've discussed this before, it's so inexplicable to view this antagonism we see today between blacks and Jews, particularly blacks against Jews, where Jews identified with blacks, they supported blacks, they were their biggest benefactors, and now you see this, it's very difficult to understand what's going on and what goes on in the psyche of somebody to turn against your friend and your colleague and your ally through the hard fights.
I find it very hard to understand too. Most blacks, I'm sure, understand that and realize that Jews have always been their friend. But for some strange reason, the most virulent black leadership, the ones who are the most intense rabble-rousers, and the ones who are attacking the whites the most, seem to single out the Jews as the main ones to attack. I would imagine that they would say to themselves, the last person I should attack is the guy who was always on my side. And they try to find one Jew someplace who was a landlord and say, look, this is an example of what the Jews did to us. So they find the Jewish millionaire from 1,000,000 years ago who once had a sweatshop. The simple fact is that represents maybe 1/10 of 1%. The Jewish thinking and the Jewish attitude always has been to fight for the black people.
Absolutely. They
and
died
to
for
give
them.
and to die for them, to give all their money for their causes. And I never could find a Jew anywhere that I could ever met anywhere in my life that would willingly support anything like apartheid or anything like racism.
Absolutely.
It's disgusting to a Jew to even think of somebody's behavior on those terms. So I think that it's some place people went wrong in the understanding of the situation, and they're screaming about a people. It's just like if your mother's supporting you all your life, and then she said, "Excuse me," and the only person you hate is your mother.
Can I ask another question?
Yeah.
All right. Liberal doesn't only mean supporting a minority. It also has to deal, for instance, with Clinton's tax policy, which is a very liberal bent policy. How would you feel about Clinton's tax policies?
I would say Clinton is one of the lowest liars that ever lived. It's almost impossible to find a lower liar than Clinton.
Why don't
And
you
I'm
be
sure,
frank? Why do you be so mild, Jackie?
I'm sure this is going to arouse a few calls, because there are going to be plenty of people who won't be able to tolerate by saying this.
No, not on this program. No, you just probably increased your
Well, it's
Comedy Act by about 100.
for anybody to say categorically, without any doubt, that I will never tax anybody under 200,000 for one nickel. I repeat that in 50 debates, and face Bush in a debate and look at Bush and say, you had no moral right to tell the people, read my lips, no new taxes, and guarantee something unless you could positively mean it. If it was inconceivable to me that somebody would guarantee something they can't guarantee. If it wasn't positive or anything could happen to change it, then you shouldn't have guaranteed it. You should have said, this is my hope, my dream, my prayer, my effort, not my... And he looked at Bush like he was the most contemptible liar that ever lived, and as soon as he got elected, 10 seconds later, he did the same thing. He didn't wait like Bush to be under pressure. He didn't wait for things to maybe develop in the direction that he didn't anticipate. He couldn't have used any excuses that Bush could have somehow rationalized. He didn't make no effort at rationalizations or any attempt at integrity or honesty. He blatantly told you, I'm a liar. That's it. You don't like it? You can't help it. I'm here for 4 years. Screw you. That's exactly what he did. It was the most disgusting, obnoxious look at America that I ever saw from a president in this country. I want to hear what Raoul Felder.
Well, you know, Victor, the gun may have been aimed at rich people, but the bullet is going to hit the middle class and poorer people, because rich people are going to survive, but they're not going to buy more stuff. They're going to fire employees who aren't really essential to their business. They're not going to expand. When all that happens, who's going to be laid off? The marginally employed fellow is going to be laid off. The carpenter who wasn't employed to build an addition to somebody's house. The worker who makes the car. You know, I think it's even more insidious. It not only doesn't do what he says it does, it subtly sets class against class. It sounds good. Rich person against poor. We get the rich people. Sure, more poor people vote. But the poor people, middle-class people, are going to be bit in the neck by this. And it's unfortunate. Jackie, you agree with me. It's the only society in the world where you're stuck with a person. You vote for them in France, Italy, England. They're a disaster. If they'd have these the president, the leader of state would have these kind of ratings, they'd call for special election. We're stuck. It's like a fish. They're hooking there, and you got it for 4 years.
Not only that, what's even more disgusting about this, what's even more unbelievable about this, is that here is a man who says to you straight to your face, I lied to you, and then stands with us with this unbelievable pomposity that you have to prove to the American people, have to prove to their government that they owe by any standard of morality or decency to support their government. They should be so willing and anxious to help with the taxes because this is what the country needs, and nobody has a right not to give it to their country. So with willingness, with happiness, because this is your chance to sacrifice yourself for your country. If he really believed this, what right did he have to tell you when he was running for election that this money is not needed, not necessary? To have a right to tell you, I'm nobody and anywhere in the world who would guarantee you something for nothing has a right to then tell you after he gets the job that it costs so much money. It's like telling you, if you could live in my apartment for nothing for a month, then you come at the end of the month, you say, hello, this is $1,000. Or invite a person to your house for dinner. After the dinner, hello, it's $850. You marry a person, you say, we're going to live in the Taj Mahal in India. After the wedding, hello, you're in a homeless shelter in the Bronx. On the basis... Nobody anywhere in the world would have the gall to tell you a barefaced lie like that, and they'll tell you that you're responsible to be moral about it and pay for something that I told you we don't want. And it's your morality that's at stake. What happened to his morality? That doesn't count at all, and he doesn't even notice it. Because if a person is such a perpetual lie, it means nothing to him. He obviously hasn't even got a conscience about it. Anyway, I don't want to talk about Clinton. It's not my nature to talk about people. I'm trying to keep this on a higher level. Yes. We have to break now. It's, ladies and gentlemen, because we have a word here from a very important sponsor. This portion is being brought to you. Oh, it still says good old guys. She's in better shape. I don't. Not only don't I care if she's Jewish, I'm willing to convert in a second if she looks good enough and forget my whole problem of my whole background and decide to become whatever she is. I don't care if she lives in this country. I could travel in a moment's notice. You show me a person who looks good enough, I'll tell you the truth. I can't become a Woody Allen. I wouldn't fool around with a girl that I was living with for 15 years. But if I know her only an hour and a half, I take chances. Ladies and gentlemen, let's keep this on a high level, and let's go away from these type of jokes to something more intelligent. And I hope that Estelle from New Jersey has got something to talk about that's more intelligent than what I just had to say. Hello?
Hi, Mr. Mason. I have to tell you that I am a Jackie Mason groupie. I saw you at Rascals in New Jersey, in West Orange, before you went to Broadway, followed you to Broadway, and also to the Garden State Arts Center in New Jersey.
Right.
So you're a
So
thrill.
thank God I'm making a living from you.
Oh, are you telling me? And I have your tape, and I bought your tape and gave them as Hanukkah gifts. I want you to know that.
Oh, thank God for that. Thank God.
And they love it.
So we even threw in a plug for the Jews just now. That's good.
Anyway, I'm calling you because I watched Prime Time last night with Diane Sawyer. Did you happen to catch the show?
No, I didn't.
Okay, it was a repeat with an update. And what it was regarding, one of the segments anyway, was about the welfare program in this country. And to me, I was revolted by it to see how enterprising some of these people are, that they run from city to city to collect checks. They take buses, they take planes, and they're brazen enough to say this on TV. Now, other people were saying that they're also working off the books and collecting unemployment, which means they're also screwing the government federally.
In another direction.
Exactly.
So they're screwing the states, the cities, the federal government, and they're running around collecting checks that they don't deserve from a million different sources.
I see them as maggots. To me, they're dragging the country down.
What is your question? Your question is, do I approve of it?
Well, of course, no.
I hope you don't ask you here, but I think it's a wonderful idea that we should all go out immediately and start collecting welfare checks. What you're probably asking me is, why are they getting away with it?
Why are they getting away with it?
And why don't we put a stop to it?
Now, I live in New Jersey. Governor Florio is the governor of New Jersey. And what he recently instituted was that he's changing the welfare laws by saying that a woman cannot have more than 2 babies, and that the government will pay for it. In other words, they'll pay for 2 children with welfare and all that entails, and no more. Now, the rest of the country has not done that.
What happens if she defies the system and has the 3rd child or a 4th? Are the 3rd and the 4th child allowed to starve to death? Or is there any provision for taking care of those children? Let's assume the mother is so heartless or cruel or crude that she doesn't care, and she's willing to have another 9 children after the first 2. What happens to those children? She obviously won't support them. So will anybody, or do we say that because the woman is so basically sick or crude or low that she could do this, that therefore the children should pass away? What should happen to those children?
I understand and I agree with you, because this is a civilized country. But what
provision is made to care for those children, Raoul? Do you have any idea?
Well, I think classically what I don't know about Florio, but what they hope to do is create incentives for the woman not to have children, because as you pointed out, what good is punishing? You're punishing children who
but you're still making the question. Let's assume that this will rob the woman of any incentive to have more children, because all of a sudden the financial profit is not going to happen for her. However, since she loses her financial advantages, she therefore will have no incentive to do it. However, let's question it from the opposite point of view. Let's assume she is low enough not to care, even about the financial question, and she just is sloppy enough.
And what happens to these kids? You can't punish the kids.
Or careless enough. So what does Florio do?
One of the plans.
What is Florio's assumption? What is he going to do?
I don't know Florio, but one of the plans that's been experimented with and tried is this: you give an incentive not to do it. How do you do that? You give her, if she doesn't have more children, subsidize housing, offer her training, give her a reason not to sit there and try to collect more money with kids.
Well, most of the welfare programs that I know that are being discussed now about reforming the welfare system have something to do with forcing people. They call it workfare, forcing people to train for for a job, giving them a certain amount of training at a certain time, the duration during which period they either have been trained for a new job, and then that the state will then provide a job, and then if they turn down the job, they get no welfare.
Right.
And this is the way we guarantee that people should either work or collect nothing if they're an able-bodied person. But I'm still left with this same question. I hate to bring it back because maybe it's getting redundant to some people, but to me it's a very important issue. What do we do to the children who are born if this woman defies the law or the system? She does. There's no law against her having more children.
Absolutely
there's
not.
there's only no provision for support for more children.
And
if we deny them any future support, we're supposedly eliminating the incentive to have more children. But the question I'm asking again is, what if she does have 12 more children? According to Florio, they will not be supported.
Well, this is crazy.
Does it
You're
make
not going
sense?
to put children on the
I
street.
wish somebody from New Jersey or the government of New Jersey could answer this question, and we'll have to try to find out during the course of the show. Right now, it's a question I can't figure out an answer to, and I don't know if they have an answer. So thank you, madam, for the question. The whole idea is a very good issue and a very important issue because people are taking ridiculous advantage of the welfare system, and we know it's happening all over the country. I don't know why people should be able to take advantage of the welfare system so freely without the government doing anything about it.
Well, because we
stopped. But I don't understand this. We stop people from robbing a bank.
Yeah.
We don't just leave them alone. Why should we leave a welfare cheat alone? We stop people from every other kind of fraud or thievery. If a person doesn't pay their taxes, they're afraid that they will get caught, and almost everybody pays taxes for that reason. You don't see too many people get caught completely cheating on their taxes, and if they do, they're put in jail. So why would people be able to collect welfare checks they don't deserve without any punishment?
Liberal politicians pander to them. They vote. That's very important. They vote in blocks, and then that's the sickness in our system.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, these are very interesting questions. We're going to go with more questions and answers and opinions from every shade of every side of every opinion. We'd love to hear from everybody. Please call us. But right now, we're going to have a break. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Jackie Mason on WABC, here for replacing for only one day Bob Grant. I would like to be here an extra period of time if I could. Unfortunately, he's coming back, and just his luck, I'm busy. So this will be it for today. Jackie Mason, I will be back after this. By trying to make sense on this show, to make a change of pace from the show till now. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's becoming fascinating because we're having some very interesting questions from our esteemed callers. And here we have one by the name of Charlie from Bergen, New Jersey. Bergenfield, I'm sorry. Charlie?
Hi, Jackie.
Yes, sir.
Just two things. I look at a picture of the Sheikh, and I see a picture of him with glasses on, adorning a Santa Claus hat, and you think, well, the guy's blind, and how could he read? So how could he be involved with, terrorism and assassinations? And I thought about it, and I said to myself, well, people who are blind or handicapped in other areas are genius and excel in other things. And obviously, he's excelled in terrorism and killing people. So the second thing is, since he bombed the New Jersey and New York Transit Authority property, he should be tried by the New Jersey Transit Authority because we have the death penalty, and the man should be executed if all the allegations do become true.
That sounds like a very interesting question. Raoul Felder, the divorce attorney, is here.
It is
also was a federal prosecutor.
Yeah, I was a federal prosecutor. Charlie, I am not sure that on sedition the federal government cannot execute you. It's such a bizarre, unusual statute going back to the Civil War, but it's basically akin to treason. And I really am not sure that they can't give you the death penalty. I know for treason you could get the death penalty. Look at the Rosenbergs. We know that. So I'm not so sure you're right.
Isn't the offense itself a federal offense?
Oh, yeah, sedition is. It's overthrow the government of the United States.
If what just happened is a federal offense, why is this question relevant about the state's jurisdiction?
No, I don't think that's terribly relevant, and I don't think you'd want the states to prosecute. You're better off with the federal government with all the resources. But he was saying another question. He was saying that bringing up the death penalty, and I don't think it's right there either.
The death penalty is not relevant to the federal jurisdiction. Federal jurisdiction does support the death penalty in cases of this type.
See, I rather think so. I think it's similar to treason. I rather think that you get the death penalty here. But Charlie, you really want the federal government to prosecute. They got the FBI. They could spend millions and millions of dollars and get the best prosecutors available. So I think you ought to...
Did the Supreme Court ever rule on the question of the death penalty?
Sure, we have it for espionage. The Rosenbergs were electrocuted.
Then there's no room for doubt about this.
Well, they're not charged with espionage. They're charged with sedition, which is
Why is
plotting
it
the
different? Plotting the
overthrow of the United States government. And I don't think it's that much different, you see. That's why I think there may be a death penalty allowable.
Well, that's a very interesting question. And now we come to Dorothy. Dorothy from Montclair, New Jersey.
Hello, Jackie.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, honey, I could hear you very clearly.
Okay, Jackie, I'd like to comment on several issues that you and Mr. Felder have been discussing.
Right.
First of all, whether or not Bill Clinton is a liar, and you're darn sure he's a liar, and we were sucked in, Jackie, when he had a public fight with Jesse Jackson. We thought, oh, he's challenging Jesse Jackson. That means he's not as much on the left as Jackson, but every appointee and most of the cabinet members are all on the left. And in addition, Jackie, he has followed the lead of a woman by the name of Marion Wright Edelman, head of the Children's Defense Fund, who wants more money for all these little illegitimate black babies. That's number one, Jackie. Could I continue?
Yes, please.
Okay. Number two, there are some people who have said that they are worried if we take the Sheikh Rahman, and if we imprison him or if we put him to trial. So far as I'm concerned, the biggest threat that the world has now is Islamic fundamentalism. They are at war with the West. They are at war with us because one of the reasons they don't like our foreign policy, they come here, they plan to destroy us, and I consider what they did at the World Trade Center an act of war. We should make them go through the trial. We should learn whatever we can of them. For example, Jackie, the Nation of Islam is following the Sheikh, and we have a fellow in this country whose name is Mohammed Mehdi, who speaks for the Muslims, and he is supposed to be a close friend of the Sheikh. So I think we can learn a lot. Now, I do have a solution as to what we should do when women on welfare continue to have babies. Okay, Jackie?
Yes.
All right. First of all, Bob Grant's solution was that they should be sterilized. Now, sterilization doesn't kill you, and it doesn't harm you, but it does put a stop to the production of all these illegitimate babies that are then put on society's back so that we have to support them. But my own solution is that if they continue to have all these illegitimate babies, they are not fit parents. We should take the babies and put them either in a Catholic home or a Jewish home or a respectable home that we can take care of these babies, raise them with the proper values, and the hell with the mothers.
You know, Dorothy, let me say this. You said some things that are sensible, and you said some things that I know Jackie doesn't agree with. And sadly, you said things that a dictator once said, that you and I are a member of a race of people that should never hear about sterilizing people, taking children away.
Do you have a better suggestion?
It isn't sterilizing people. We don't do that. The civilized race don't do that.
I know.
And I know when you said illegitimate black babies, I know it upset Jackie as much as it upset me. It has nothing to do with black or white. So it's a social problem, illegitimate children.
But the social problem,
But your cure is worse than the disease, I think.
Well, the truth of the matter is, if a person does it, if a white person does it, would you excuse him any more than a black? It so happens we have a huge black population here, and they've always been underprivileged, and there's a certain situations here that are probably more prevalent to blacks than whites. But what's the difference? Who's doing it more or less? There's plenty of white families doing the same type of thing. In many parts of the country, the whites are doing it more because there's more white people there, perhaps in Kentucky doing it, than black people in Pittsburgh.
Jackie.
The question is, who's doing it is not the point. The question is, what should we do? And I think you're very right that something definite and something firm that will solve the problem has to be done as quickly as possible. We can't allow a woman who has no money to have as as many children as she wants and then say it's none of my business. She's obviously an unfit mother and an irresponsible person, and the children obviously will not have anything they need in life. Not only will they have no food, they obviously won't have any love or compassion or concern or stability or anything else that a child needs to grow up as a decent human being. And I think the last thing you said, I want to hear what Raoul Felder's opinion is, I think might make sense. The idea that they should become the wards of the state.
Oh, now she's talking about something that's doable. Sure, because make these children productive, but
no,
not
but
to
why
sterilize
shouldn't? Why?
people.
Let's forget the sterilization part. So she was
Yeah.
She doesn't claim to have all the answers. This is a thought she had. I don't want to belabor it. Let's talk about the more sensible thought that we both agree might be conceivable. The idea that children from an irresponsible parent who is told in advance that the law says that the government will not support her and has no obligation to support her new children, and she has them anyway, proves she's irresponsible and unconcerned about the situation. And if she's unconcerned and therefore can't support them, either she should be forced because by going to work to create adequate support for the third child that the government is not supporting, or if the government can't solve the problem that way, then obviously she's so irresponsible that she can't be a normal parent. And the child should be taken away into some kind of a daycare center, or whatever you call it, a child care center, which would be supported by the government to take care of these children. And they should be taken away from them.
Well, I agree with you about 3/4 of the way, maybe more than 3/4. I think there ought to be a mechanism where she's forced to work. But I think when you're taking children away from mothers, I think you got to think about it on a case-by-case basis. I think it's difficult to say, she does it, she doesn't want to work, we take the baby away. But I think basically we got to do something.
Well, let's be honest about it. There are kibbutzim in Israel, where the state-sponsored kibbutzim, where our social systems, where a kind of community takes care of their children through a communal effort that's sponsored by the state and state-supported. And the mother could come to see her children. She could even be involved with her children, but the children are then supported by the state, and the mother becomes a situation that's not solely responsible for that child.
You know more
because
about
if the
this
woman
than I
maintains
do
her
with
sole
this.
responsibility and she has no money, there's a limit to how much the state should
but
have to pay.
I don't know. You may be right. In a kibbutzim, are they forced to give up the children? I don't know that. I know it is.
No, they're not forced to give up their children,
yeah.
but it proves that in a situation, how could you claim that a mother in a case like this would be better for the child than a system supported by the state?
No, I don't claim
Obviously,
that.
a mother of this kind is so irresponsible and so pathetic and preposterous as a human being, and so immoral, and that she's totally unconcerned. She's totally irresponsible.
What bothers me, Jackie, is this. Anytime the government tries to do anything, they do it badly.
Why, is the FBI a badly organized organization?
No, but when they try to go into...
the United States Marines so helpless?
No, the United States Marines, but when they...
I disagrey with you about the cliche that every time the government does something, they do it badly.
Well, they try to go
they don't do a bad job of collecting your taxes when you're negligent on
They do a
income
bad
tax.
job of collecting your garbage, though.
They might do a bad job of collecting your garbage, but there is a lot of organizations maintained by the government that are brilliantly efficient.
Yeah, but...
Like, nobody says the New York City Police Department is inefficient or incompetent. That's a city's organized organization. The state troopers are considered the best and most honest in New York State. That's a state-sponsored organization. We can name a lot of state-sponsored organizations that are brilliantly efficient.
The federal government is still paying $20,000 for toilets and for $5,000 for light fixtures. I mean, they're inefficient systems.
But some of them are inefficient, but some of them have not been inefficient. And to say that a woman who's so irresponsible that she's the least efficient person in the world is better than a government, I don't know if that claim could be made.
I don't know either, but I think when you get the government into the business of mothering, I don't know that I have that much faith in them.
Well, this is a very good academic question that hasn't been resolved yet by all the social philosophers of this country, and I don't know if we'll resolve it in this minute. So let's go to the next caller, Paul. Paul from Connecticut. Oh, I'm sorry. We have a break here now. No. A break for a very important person and a very important commercial. Wait till you hear this message. It's very important. Take it to Venezuela and have a good time. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back on the air, and we want to talk to our very special guest, a great star in the Brooklyn area. He's the state assemblyman in Brooklyn, and he is probably one of the most highly respected state legislators in this state. Everybody knows him, and the highest and the most important people on every level of government have paid tributes to him. And I heard Senator Kemp raven with tremendous compliments and salutations about this man. I've heard it from other politicians on every level of government. People love Dov Hiken. In Brooklyn, he collects fortunes of money. What he does with it is nobody's business. How it keeps getting lost, I don't know. All I know is whether you like it or not, he's still in office. Dov Hyken, where are you?
Hi, Jackie. How are you?
How do you do?
Don't stop. Continue. My mother loves it.
Well, I'm delighted. I'm delighted that you're here to talk to us, and I'm even more delighted that Sheikh Rahman and his crowd don't know exactly where you are now. Just my luck, they'll miss you and catch me. I didn't even bother them. I don't know. I hope they're not looking for me now, because I heard anybody who talks to you is going to have a problem. But that's not the question. The question is, how do you feel about this whole situation now? I know you have a lot to say on the subject, and they've been quoting you all over the newspapers. You were never as popular and prominent as you are now. Somebody had to threaten your life for you to become a hit. And thank God you're doing okay. I could hear you breathing from here. So tell me the truth.
Jackie.
Is this issue that Raoul Felder, the attorney who's on here with me, just was talking about, as to whether he should be indicted, he should be subject to the death penalties, because it's so much the same as it's a different version of a spy, because it's sedition, which is different than the spy, but at the same time it's the basic threat to the government, and maybe it should be subjected to the same kind of punishment. What do you have to say on the subject?
Well, Jackie, first of all, I'm very happy that the government did not take the easy way out, and as some people proposed, getting rid of him, sending him to Afghanistan or Egypt, so we don't have to deal with the problem. I think it's a great commentary that this and a powerful statement this country is making, that we are not going to tolerate terrorism in this country, and we're going to stand up to it, and we're not going to be afraid. So I think it's, clearly there is a case against the Sheikh. This is not a conspiracy. These people were involved in planning all types of violence all over the city of New York. And let's remember, it was directed against everyone, Jackie. It was directed against, if the people who travel in the Lincoln Tunnel and the people who drive on the Washington Bridge and so on are Jews and non-Jews, black and white, Muslims, Christians, and so on. And they were going to, they were for real. They were going to bomb.
Yes, sir.
You're doing a great job, and I think they should have you back. I think it'd need to be fun to have you in the morning. That would be interesting to see your type of humor to wake people up.
Well, thank God.
You'd have to wake up yourself, though.
A couple of things, I think.
Did you know that Raoul Felder, the prominent attorney, is here with me?
Pardon?
Did you know that Raoul Felder, the divorce attorney?
He's there with you.
Right.
Are you getting a divorce?
I'm not getting a divorce, but he got a free place to work.
No, I think the thing you said about Clinton earlier made an awful lot of sense. I think the other thing that we need to worry about a lot is the fact the way that we're trying to divide the country into groups: the rich, the poor, the black, the white. And I hope that in this mayoral election we don't get into that, and that we begin to deal with the issues. For example, we should deal with the issue of why the New York OTB loses money. That's ridiculous for a bookie to lose money. That's all.
I hear that all the time about how stupid it is for the OTB to be losing money. And as soon as you mention it, right away it becomes a racial issue.
Exactly.
Right away people say, well, I'm not picking on Clinton because he's a Gentile, and you're not picking on OTB because blacks are running it any more than you would if a white Jew is running it. The simple fact is that it is idiotic and unbelievable that a bookie is losing money. And if
the only bookmaker in America losing money.
Is there anybody defined? Has anybody defined what's wrong or what we can do about it? Why does everybody mention this in almost every political conversation I ever hear about? And I don't hear anybody demanding any action be taken about it, or trying to find out from the mayor or whoever's in charge what is the reason that this is allowed to continue. Hello? Paul? Oh, we lost him. What's your opinion, Raoul?
Well, I think Paul's initial point was very well taken. This has become a racial election. Ironically, I don't think it's Giuliani doing it, frankly. I think that what happens is every time the mayor is criticized, he says, hey, you're criticizing me because of my race. And he creates a different standard. He creates one standard for himself and one standard for everybody else. If you say anything or attack him, it's because of race. This is very unfortunate. I think the campaign is a racial campaign. When you speak to people, they do vote that way. But
I don't believe that. I really don't believe it. I don't know one Jew that I have met yet that wasn't wishing Dinkins well and wasn't hoping that he would do the kind of things that they could be proud of and happy with. I don't see any great degree of discrimination in this town towards a person just because he's black. I think they're happy to see him do a good job, and if he did, they would be thrilled.
No, that's it. What you're saying is right. I'm making a different point. I absolutely, when he was elected, I don't think they cared his color, black, white, pink. He did a job fine. I think what's happening now Now, I think it's a stratagem of the Dinkins campaign that he defends himself by saying, hey, listen, you're picking on me.
I remember when Jews used to do this all the time. I remember when I was a kid. And
anti-Semite.
And every time you criticize the Jew, they would say he's anti-Semitic. I remember when I was on the Ed Sullivan show, and Ed Sullivan threw me out because of a totally misunderstood finger incident. When I was doing something clean, he decided it was dirty, and he threw me out. And almost every Jew I met said, he must be an anti-Semite. Why else would he throw you out? Ed Sullivan was married to a Jewish lady, and Ed Sullivan had the slightest thoughts of any kind in his life of anti-Semitism. But as soon as he did something they didn't like, they were ready to call him an anti-Semite.
But it works sometimes.
And the amazing thing is that it was a weapon for every Jew who couldn't get a job or refused to work for a living. As soon as he stunk on the job, you know what he would say? They hate me because because they're anti-Semitic. It's the easiest excuse in the world that Jews used to use as a weapon, and there are a lot of blacks using it now for the same way. When their voice is inadequate, it's a very easy excuse to claim. It's a very convenient opportunity to holler discrimination, and all of a sudden you don't have to answer the question. I never understood why anybody should buy that as an answer, and I think it should never be used by anybody.
But, it inhibits. For instance, do you remember that Giuliani said about Dinkins, he's not very good with arithmetic after Dinkins gave this budget that didn't make sense? And what do you think happened? Lynch said that's a code word. It's an aspersion on his race when he said he's not very good with arithmetic. So what happens is you remember the incident.
I remember the incident.
But what happens is you got to get very careful what you say. People are too careful. They're afraid to say what really is. And
I don't think anybody should have a right to use that as a weapon. We should deal with the issue.
Absolutely.
I remember there was like an old joke about a Jew who went in to become a TV announcer. And when he came out, he looked like downtrodden and miserable, like he obviously lost the job. And the person said to him, what happened? Why didn't you get this job? Obviously, you didn't get it. He says, the reason I didn't become an announcer is because they were anti-Semitic. It's a very easy excuse. Thank God Clinton is not black, so I feel free to be able to call him names without having to worry that somebody will say I'm a racist. How do you do? Who's the next caller here? Kirby. Do I see? Kenny. Kenny, how do you do, Kenny, from Union, New Jersey?
How you doing, fellas? That's funny.
Right.
I feel compelled to straighten something out. A couple calls back, you had Dorothy from Montclair, and she's a regular caller on the show, and she alluded to the Bob Grant Mandatory Sterilization Act.
Right.
Well, if Bob were here, he'd explain that in current day terms, what he's talking about is not some sinister permanent sterilization. He's talking about Norplan. So I don't want the audience or you guys...
Do you know what he's talking about?
I think it's some sort of reversible sterilization, am I right?
Right, something...
Yeah, but listen, Kenny, let me ask you. You want to take these... Well, call it sterilization. I mean, it's reversible. It's still sterilization of a form. Today we say we do it to this person. Tomorrow we say to the next one. Maybe this one has a bit... I mean, I just think it's a sort of... It has, let's put it this way, since Hitler it hasn't been very popular, and I don't think we should really think seriously about it in today's day and age.
Next caller, how do you do, Sandy? Oh, I'm sorry, we have to have a break now because we have a break for a very important reason. It's Cadillac. Cadillac is got a fortune of money, and they're doing so much for this station that they keep offering the money for time here because I haven't been able to get away from Cadillac for 2 hours already. And not that I'm against it. I thank God they got the cash, and I'm glad they're supporting Bob Grant, but they never did nothing for me, so why should I be saddled with them the whole day? But that's besides the point. The Cadillac is a phenomenal car. If you don't know the difference, I would suggest that you buy it. If you want a good car, it's up to you. That's not nice to see. Cadillac has been a hallmark of quality in this country for many years. That's not written on the paper. I say this myself because I'm trying to straighten out whatever problem I may have caused by the last remark. Anyway, this is the Bob Grant program, and it's brought to you by Cadillac Tri-Statesmen, the Cadillac dealers of New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. This is the greatest day in everybody's life because this is the opportunity to hear what I got to say. This is I myself am wondering how anybody deserves to hear so much wisdom and intelligence as they have heard on this show, because Paul Simon was very interesting and fascinating, and now we have Mr. Gold, who has made such an exhaustive research study, and I noticed that he knows so much about the situation, and everybody is buzzing about it all over America, so we want to hear why he thinks that Jackson will either be considered innocent or at any rate get away with this whole situation as a free man of any problem. Is that what your assessment is, Mr. Gold?
Well, exactly, because as we were saying earlier, it's one boy's word against one adult's word. And
But let me ask you a question. Let's assume I claim I was attacked or robbed or stabbed or murdered. Whatever the situation is, it's in almost all these type of cases, it's one person who was violated by another. I'm not saying that in this case he was,
particularly an act like this.
But I'm saying in almost all cases it's only one person against another. So don't they study the evidence to see how legitimate it looks? And isn't that the major question? Not whether it's just one person. It's a question of how authentic the evidence looks.
Well, exactly. But you know what? In some strange way, I don't even think that this is the primary issue. I think the main issue in this whole imbroglio is the custody case.
Well, that may be the motive. But Todd, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
You interviewed a lot of people for for your piece and people. Now we read the newspapers and we see it's carefully orchestrated. They have a good PR outpouring for Michael. Everybody said he'd never do it. He's given his life for kids and all this. Did you hear anything the other way when you speak to people in L.A.? People say, "Oh, it's a real story. We got the real poop on him," or he's a strange guy, or maybe I'd believe it. Yeah.
Have you, in other words, have you heard any rumors that he might be in some way have committed any strange behavior or looks like?
Sure. I mean, the whole even those people who are speaking out on his behalf are of dubious standing. They're on his payroll. But sure, we have talked to people who say they have heard
rumors,
stories about this sort of behavior for many years.
Mm-hmm. So in other words,
there is a pattern.
There is a pattern
that all the newspapers have talked about.
So if there's been such rumors from before, and if newspapers have heard it, and they seem to think that there's enough evidence that this type of behavior is something that he's capable of in the past, then why do you say you feel so sure he'll be exonerated?
Again, what we're talking about are allegations and not facts.
In other words, what this child is talking about is not provable evidence, is what you're saying.
Well, at least not in a legal
It's not provable
sense.
because he was alone at the time, and there's no substantiation from another source that this actually happened.
But Todd, Jackie, isn't it always the case in an act like this? I mean, you don't invite people over to watch it.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean there's enough proof that he actually did it.
No, I understand.
Just because in other cases sometimes a guy is convicted doesn't mean he should be convicted in this case.
Absolutely.
Why should a man be convicted just because of allegations when the allegations have no basis of proof?
I couldn't agree with you more, but I get the feeling Todd feels that he didn't do this.
I'm sorry. What's your last answer to that question? Do you feel he's really innocent or not?
I don't know. I have to resist passing judgment.
Right. I don't think. I agree with you. I don't think it's right or fair to pass judgment. I think it's a matter for the courts to decide. And thank you very much for whatever you imparted of any kind of knowledge you gave us on this subject. I see you're an intelligent man and you're a decent person. You don't want to say anything that might be in any way misconstrued. God bless you, and you should be fair to this man under this kind of pressure. It's very easy to attack somebody, and it's very easy to call somebody names once allegations are claimed, and it's a lot more intelligent to resist that temptation and to stay fair and not to accuse anybody before the evidence is in. Thank you very much, Mr. Gold. And now we're going to get to Bob Dole. Where's Bob Dole? Bob Dole, the leader of the United States Senate, from the Republican point of view. The leader of the Republicans in the United States Senate, Bob Dole.
Hey, Jackie, how you doing?
Well, thank God. I'm delighted to talk to you again.
Yeah, I'm out here in Davenport, Iowa. You've heard about that the last few months.
I heard. I don't want to accuse you of running for president, but I know you was in New Hampshire last week and you're in Iowa this week. And I know if I ask you if you're running for president, you're going to tell me you're not sure. Am I right?
Right. Got it right first time.
And I want to ask you another question. Do you see the next major issue that is going to be addressed in the United States Senate is probably going to be the health bill, right?
Probably the health bill and the North American Free Trade Agreement. Of course, the health bill is a big, big issue, broader than anything we've taken up in years.
Do you expect a major conflict between yourself and the Clinton administration in terms of what kind of a health bill you're going to want?
Well, I would hope not. I think it depends on President Clinton will address the nation in a joint session of Congress September 22nd. Mm-hmm. And if he leaves the door open for compromise and bipartisanship, then I think we can and we should work together. I think the American people understand this is a big, big issue, and it shouldn't be politicized if we can avoid it.
I do know of one issue that everybody expects it to be a major difference already between yourself and the Clinton administration, and that's going to be the payroll tax. The question of whether the employers would have to pay a whole new tax for this situation.
Yeah, and you take particularly small businessmen and women, either what they call a mandate, which is just says you have to buy it, which is the same as a tax or a payroll tax.
Right.
There are a lot of small businessmen and women.
And as far as you know, do you think it was already determined by the Clinton administration to ask for this?
Well, he may ask for it, but if he leaves the door open and say, well, we're not setting concrete on anything, then we have a chance to find a substitute.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a year before, at least a year, I think, before we pass the big health care package. There are a lot of things. It's not that small businessmen and women don't want to provide health care. Many of them do. Many of them just can't afford to do it and keep their front door open.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be a tough issue, but...
Well, I personally hope you win on that because I think it's a totally unfair type of thing. I want to ask you a better question that we've been discussing here. I don't know if you're familiar with the fact that for the last couple of hours on this show, maybe you've had better things to do than listening to this, but the major issue that we've been discussing here is a constitutional question that nobody's been raising about why we should even pay taxes at all that the president swore he does not want. And why should the president be immune from any law that anybody else would ever have to observe in any other field of activity? If you guaranteed somebody that if you could move into my house for nothing, I would never be able to charge you rent. If I guaranteed you something like any kind of a plebiscite or any kind of a guarantee on any basis, you would have to live up to it, even if it was a verbal agreement. This was a verbal agreement with the American people that he put to them to vote upon. They voted against taxes because that's what he guaranteed. Now, why should the Constitution allow him to levy taxes against the people if he swore he won't ask for it? And I absolutely did not vote for it. So it takes away my rights as a citizen, and it destroys the whole idea of the democratic process itself.
Well, I guess you could always test that in court, but you're right. There 57% of the people didn't vote for Clinton. 43% did. I think because he promised a middle-class tax cut and said if he did, he was going to address the deficit, he was going to cut spending $3 for every dollar in new taxes, and it worked out just the opposite.
Now, in any other field of business, the guy would be sued, and the plaintiff would win. So why should it be any different in this case? Why should I have to pay for something that somebody told me he's not going to ask for, guaranteed me he doesn't want? I paid for it. I voted for him on that basis, and it's like a legal contract. Why should it be any different than a verbal legal contract?
Well, I think it's even worse when you look at the retroactive taxes. They're going to be $10 billion that people are going to pay. They thought the tax raises would start in July or August. They started last January. Not only, and that's a tax rate increase that's retroactive, but also a state tax rate increases. So as I've said, they're after the living and the dead. But
now, we had a guest here before who claimed that there's no constitutional right to that kind of a tax at all. That there's no that it was never tested in the courts, but he assumes that the courts would never allow that kind of retroactive tax because it's a direct tax on an existing property.
Yeah, well, but I guess the question is you should give notice to people before you provide tax increases. Now, the courts addressed it a number of times, but they've never addressed the issue of raising state tax rates. Who do you give notice to when somebody's passed away? So I think it'll probably be a case go to the court, test the retroactivity. But before that happens, we ought to repeal it. Senator Feinstein, a liberal Democrat from California, has introduced the first bill to repeal a retroactive tax provision. So she knows in California it's a big loser.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some action there.
Do you think we could make a constitutional issue about the whole tax program of Clinton because it's a violation of a legal contract that he made with the American people, and maybe we could take this to the Supreme Court?
Well, I'd like to think so, but I got a feeling that the court would probably say, well, even though he promised that was a campaign promise, and he could say, well, the circumstances were different when he got elected, which he did say, and they weren't really different, and he had no choice and all those things. He could probably back out of it,
But then the courts could decide that the backing out doesn't have any intelligent excuse and that it doesn't make any rational sense, and they could judge the rationality of it. And if they decide that it's a fake excuse, they could vote against it.
I got a better plan. That's for all these people who don't like it to vote Republican in 1994 and elect a Republican governor, Christie Whitman, over New Jersey this year. That would send a message to Clinton. Maybe he'd repeal the whole thing.
Now, what do you feel about the extra troops in Somaliland?
Well, I'm worried about it because it proves that the UN can't accomplish anything, and they have to call back the U.S., send 400 troops over there to try to find General Hadid. My view, I thought we were getting out. I thought we'd done our humanitarian role and spent $500 million or more in the process and did a good service to humanity, but I get a little worried about our re-entry.
I would like to know this. Isn't there a Defense Department in our country with the kind of experts that we supposedly trust, that on a bipartisan basis, that should be able to judge for us if it's intelligent for us to still be there or not? Aren't there technicians in our Defense Department, in the hierarchy of our military, who know whether this makes sense or not?
Oh, I think they're there. I mean, no question about it. I think we have good men and
shouldn't they
women.
be able to judge for us whether it makes sense or not? Why shouldn't we be able to know what they think, and shouldn't they determine for us what we should do?
Well, I guess we've heard. I don't know if we've heard from them, but we heard Secretary Aspen today say we were there for more or less to rebuild the nation. I didn't know we were in the rebuilding nation business, but we have provided humanitarian aid around the world, as we always do. But I think it's a pretty close call, and President Clinton decided to beef up our forces. I'm not certain if they capture General Adid, whether it would end or not.
But let me ask you another question. Bosnia. I know you've been demanding on television many times. I've watched you asserting yourself very intensely on this subject about Bosnia, that it's about time we did something about it.
I think at least if we're not going to help, we shouldn't sit by and watch them divide up the country. At least we ought to persuade the United Nations to lift the arms embargo and let people defend themselves. It's going to be a sad chapter in history. It's going to be like the chapter in the 40s when we sat by as an international community and did nothing while they slaughtered 6 million Jews. And I think we're going to be faced in 5 or 10 years with the same agonizing question. Why did we do nothing? Why did we let innocent women and children be slaughtered while we all sat on our hands?
I'm so glad you said that, because Clinton said almost exactly what you said before the election and went back on his word, as he did on so many other issues right after the election. He swore that he would do something about Bosnia. He considered Bush terrible because he didn't do enough, and he said it's inhuman not to step in and immediately put a stop to it. And since then, he's been offering a different excuse every day for doing nothing. And even the people in his own State Department, 3 of them already have quit because of the fact that he's done nothing about it. In so many cases, he swore for one thing, then does the opposite, and then justifies it with another story the next day. And you want me to tell you the truth? I don't want to talk politics on this show or take sides, but it sounds to me like you're making a hell of a lot more sense on these issues than he does, and you have a lot more honor and integrity on the issues, and you state to what you believe and what you think, and you say the same thing yesterday as you do today, and God bless you. It's a pleasure to meet an honest, decent, legitimate politician.
Oh, Jackie?
Yes.
You got 1 minute?
Yes.
Let me put the mayor of Davenport on. He went through all this flood thing. He wants to say a word to all the people back there who helped him out.
Well, God bless you. Why not?
Right here, Pat.
Yes.
Hi, Jackie. How are you? This is Mayor Gibbs.
Well, thank God. I'm glad you got the job.
How are you?
I heard a lot of good words about you, mostly from your family.
Yeah. Things seem to be going pretty good here. We appreciate all the help that everybody around the country has given us.
Well, everybody in this part of the country has been very moved by what happened and very concerned and very involved, and everybody's been talking about it and doing whatever they can. Groups have been forming all the time to give whatever help they could put together, and I think that it really aroused the best in people. Well, God bless you. Take care of yourself, my friend, and thanks for showing up. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, from everywhere who have been listening to me, and I hope that it's not too crowded in Providence, Rhode Island, on Labor Day weekend in the Music Theater when I perform there, because we're close to a sellout, and I don't want too many people to buy tickets. If you want to buy a ticket, it's up to you, but don't rush, because it's going to be very busy. Providence, Rhode Island, Jackie Mason, Labor Day weekend, and here I work for nothing. Over there I make a few dollars. So I would rather... And how about the Cadillac situation? The Cadillac has been sponsoring us throughout the day, and they deserve a kind word. Unfortunately, I can't think of anything good about them. All I know is that this is the Cadillac Tri-Statesmen, the Cadillac dealers of New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. Buy a Cadillac if you could afford it. Did a brilliant job of explaining everything that's happening all over the world and what are the contradictions in Clinton's statements and performances. And he gave us a much more balanced view and a much more intelligent approach to these situations. Because when you listen to President Clinton, we have all kinds of idiotic excuses about why we shouldn't save the children in Bosnia, or at least do something about it, which is a direct contradiction of what he said in his campaign. Dole explained that to us. Then he explained exactly why the whole tax system of what Clinton is doing is actually a perpetration of a fraud upon the American people, and he agreed with me that we should make this a constitutional issue to do something about it. He obviously doesn't have too much hope that we could win, so he changed the subject and said we should vote Republican. Well, I don't know if you should vote Republican or not. I'm not taking sides here, but I do think that we shouldn't accept the idea that a president has a right to defraud America any more than anybody else does. It's not like... He's supposed to uphold the law, not violate it. It's like if everybody else is not allowed to rob a house, you don't give the sheriff the only right to rob houses. The guy who's supposed to uphold the law shouldn't be the only guy who's allowed to violate it. He's supposed to be in charge of it. But we've said that before. I don't want to repeat myself. I don't know if you noticed it. So now let's go into the question of Acapente. Where's Acapente?
Hello. Hi, Jackie.
How do you do? How do you do?
Fine.
I'm very proud of you because I found out... First, let me explain to people who you are. This is the cop that I was defending so desperately on my television show. He was a cop who was working to fight the drug dealers of New York, and he was considered one of the best of the cops, and he was doing a remarkable job. He was awarded many times for his heroism and his bravery, and in the course of doing his job, he apprehended some drug dealers who were able to claim some technical violation of some civil rights clause that was a total fabrication. It turned out to be a total fraud, and they went partners with the politicians and the judges, whether they were paid off or not. I don't want to make any accusations, but it certainly looked very crooked from top to bottom, because this cop, who was a real hero and was catching drug dealers and putting them in and getting them convicted, all of a sudden was ganged up on by these people, by these nefarious characters, in collusion with the politicians, and he was railroaded into jail, and by some kind of manipulated fraudulent charges that he was able to prove were fraudulent. And then after all the campaigns made by me on television and by that congressman, what's his name? Congressman Acapente. What's the congressman's name who fought for you?
Oh, Guy Molinari.
Guy Molinari from Staten Island. Guy Molinari from Staten Island made a tremendous fight for him, together with many pressures on President Bush, who then signed a paper that will get him out. And after they got him out, evidence was supplied that proved that his case was completely a righteous one. That everybody against him was either a fraud or a liar. They even found a couple of witnesses who admitted to have lied in their testimony against him. So this is obviously an honorable man who's now a free man, but he still has problems. And let me hear, what is the problem now, Mr. Acapente?
No, I just wanted to let everyone know the support has been overwhelming. September 20th, I'm starting a talking circuit all across the country in hopes of educating the American public, not only about my injustice, but the reality that we've lost the war against drugs. Unfortunately, in the United States, these foreign drug lords possess the political power to manipulate the criminal justice system and intimidate law enforcement officers.
That's exactly what happened in your case. And I'm so proud and happy that you were able to prove your case and prove that this fraud is being perpetrated, and you're now a free man. And that now that you want to make an educational campaign about the fact that we lost the war against the drug dealers is very interesting. I want to see if we could hold on to you, because unfortunately we have the traffic report that we have to go into right now, and then see if we could spend a couple of minutes to find out what are the results of this situation. They don't even give you a sandwich. They figure they got you cornered. You got no choice. But it's a pleasure. It's really a pleasure. Maybe to listen. To do this is murder, I'll be honest with you. It's murder because it's a tight little room here. They forgot the air conditioning. They put it on, but it doesn't work, and they don't care. They save a few dollars, and they know that once a Jew who's a egomaniac like me is talking, he's not going to leave so fast, so they got a sure thing with me. Raoul Felder is not that normal either. That's why he's also here. This man is doing
I like
this.
suffering, that's right.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have been discussing the tax situation, everything that's out in the news with the terrorist situation. We came to the conclusion that Michael Jackson, with an exploit on the air just before, will probably get away with this whole thing, and will probably be proven innocent, because they assume that this one child who told the story is either lying or is part of an acrimonious marital battle, and therefore there's some kind of an ulterior motive in doing this whole thing.